dark age of technology created humans that could conquer the galaxy a long time before the Emperor emerged. Now, the genetic manipulation in 40k is impressive, but what genetics do we know come from that time, the time of the Dark Age, and what can that tell us? We are looking at examples from the Men of Gold, to the Leagues of Votann, to Navigators. If you like the video, give it a like to help the channel do well with the volatile algorithm. Now, the first example should go to the leading race of men during the Dark Age of technology. If you measure it at the beginning, the Men of Gold, they appear to have been long-lived, a sign of their tampering with genetics, perhaps, and they brought order to the chaos of terror and leadership to Earth when they emerged as leaders, perhaps aided by their flesh sculpting. We also know they created the Stone Men, technologically and probably genetically enhanced Men of Stone ventured out into the void, so they would need physical and mental enhancements for that. For the Navigators, their origin places them firmly within the Dark Age of technology, but with various dates, so we're not exactly sure when they emerged. But we do know they came out before psychers were prevalent amongst mankind. Some say they appeared due to genetic tampering, others that the Big E tampered with the genetics of humans, so that in the early days of the Great Crusade, he could move his forces around the galaxy. Or it could have been an evolution triggered by mankind stepping out into the void. If it was genetics, that shows an understanding of the warp on some level during this period. This Navigator gene has endured, and it has done this through cultivating the Navigator genetically. They are the result of selective breeding and screening by their house at every stage of development. The power of the gene is easily lost, and so is controlled through intermarriage between Navigator houses only. It's lost when a Navigator is with an ordinary human. So this tells us that when introduced, the genetics needed to be kept within a certain power base, thus their limits, perhaps under the Men of Gold's control, and that this technique with the Navigators could not be shared with those without the gene, for fear some other power may take it away from their monopoly. Or it's just how the genetics panned out. I have those opinions about the Navigator gene because it was a decision to design and make it, so it would seem that there are more likely limits set by the creator than genetic limits of the development of the gene. And if you doubt that, think of the time itself in which this is happening, the golden age of technology. Now, a particular type of Navigator is called the Patternova and is chosen from the most powerful Navigators in each of the great families. The role they play from their place on Terra is to enhance the warp power of the other Navigators within the Imperium. Now, this boost ends when the Patternova dies until another is appointed. When there is not one, the Navigators across all the houses can navigate, but to a lesser degree. So when the Patternova dies, the heirs apparent change, growing larger and stronger, as if they are preparing themselves for their role, this clash, and their mutations change, so they can live underwater, survive poisonous environments, and even the hard vacuum of space. They enter beast mode, and the heirs apparent fight at this stage until one stands, and then that Navigator can be instilled as the new Patternova, and that chosen one can give the Navigators within the human empire that boost they were lacking. The fact this pattern continues to happen tells me that this may have been an attitude genetically bred into the Navigators through the gene, for might makes right, the Darwinian choice of the strongest of them being allowed to live. And of course, the gene as a whole tells me that whenever this was introduced, it was because at that time the Navigators were a better, quicker method of warp travel than what was used at the time. The rulers perhaps wanted to extend their influence by reaching further into the galaxy faster, or gaining advantage in some conflict against Xenos creatures. Next up, I want to examine the kin of the Leagues of Votann. We are told when they set out into the galaxy on their ships that they had advanced technology, such as proto-men of iron dubbed Iron Kin, so likely pre-revolt in terms of their behaviour. The kin also have the ancestor cores, AI linked to STCs. But for this video, most interestingly, this race are a clone race. Each generation emerges from the machines, known as crucibles, which draw upon vast banks of genomic data to produce a stable and varied populace. So, stable clone technology. If used on Terra, this would give the rulers an endless supply of humans to use in their battles, genetically altered and tailored to face enemies in front of them. And I'll come back to that idea in a moment. And for going out into the galaxy at large, the kin in this example, if their exploration hit a rough planet and falls to crash land there, they can replenish their numbers for exploration with the crucibles and perhaps conquest. And this might have been something similar on the other explorative fleets put out by the Imperium during the Dark Age. Just listening back to this, I didn't of course mean the Imperium there, I meant the human empire of this time. When it comes to surviving in the 40k verse, the kin are ready for that too, with the use of clone skins is the way I'm going to pronounce that word. The Votann Codex tells us the introduction of clone skins gave the kin deeper, denser muscles, a tough bone structure, higher red and white blood cell counts, exceptional core strength, no need for the gym, and formidable physical resilience. All those could be excellent enhancements for soldiers under the Men of Gold or some other ruling government, or even for those on top themselves. And the souls of the kin can be changed as well. What happens is their souls are altered to shine more dimly amongst the tides of the warp than humans. They have no physical mutations like humanity, but this is only if you have the psychoactive clone skin. Can you activate the barrier tech that lets those types of kin hook up with the warp? So they rarely fall to the temptations of chaos or become possessed. Psychic abilities struggle to find a purchase on them. And just on that point, could this be some early or low-level use of the pariah gene, which basically blocks the use of psychic powers within the area of the person who has it? We are told that gene's origins are varied from Dark Age tech to Xenos interference to a natural evolution of power, so very similar to that earlier Navigator gene. But the one with the kin also has an effect on their souls, on their character, making them more obstinate and conservative. I also want to point to the knowledge of the warp again here. Even if it's not something they drew on in their want to find power sources for the weapons, for example, it's there with the Navigators, it's there with the cloneskins of the Votann, and their half-light in the warp to protect against the dangers there, and the possible pariah link also. Other cloneskins give enhanced reaction times and vision that registers in their infrared, or other genetic spectra. They gain limited resistance to extremes of temperature, gravity, or strains of cosmic radiation, so they'll never turn into the Fantastic Four. This all helps them live in the galactic core. These skins can manifest physically with the kin, such as them having coloured eyes. The kin see this as a badge of their abilities, and the mutations are not looked down on as a death sentence like many in the Imperium would view them. So you can see in terms of the clones produced by the Votann that they are many and can be tailored for the situation the kin find themselves in terms of exploring space and survival. It's also noted martial skins can be used to promote physical strength and aggression, ensuring a steady supply of soldiers to fight on the line. So you could tailor your soldiers, making those going out into the galaxy prepared for what they face if that knowledge is known. They could be sent out on navigator ships, resilient and aggressive warriors, to face any opposition humans might face. And if this technology was given to them by the ancestor cores when they left Terra, we know that some tech and crucibles were also likely to have been available on Earth during the Dark Age. A heady mix, stable clones who can be gifted with genetic abilities they need to fulfill their roles. I bet the Men of Gold will be rubbing their hands at the thought of that. So now friends, I'll wrap up today's video and just say, if you like the Leagues of Votann, I've got another video for you.